man speaking in the city square, trying to tell somebody that he cares. Can you blame the voice of youth for asking what is true? Yeah, the ones that you're calling wild are gonna be the leaders in a little while, when will the lonely voice of youth cry what is true? This our world's waking to a newborn babe, and I solemnly swear it'll be their way. You better help that voice of youth find what is true. And the lonely voice of youth cries, what is true?
All right. Well, welcome to another stream. Oops, we're gonna adjust the camera because it's way off. There we go. That's much better. I am here. We are going to talk about flat world. It's going to be interesting. We're going to talk about feminism. Also interesting. I've got another video coming out on feminism soon, I think. We've got our Sampel here, right? We've got our Muppet Cup. Very important. Have you considered? Might be worth it. I got some jelly babies. Very important. Good stuff. Opened a bag of jelly babies just for flat world feminism. And we got some bear claw tea from the Table Rock Tea Company. Good stuff. Very rich. Very rich. All right. So, like I said, I got another video possibly coming. A little bit more nuanced approach. We're going to have Adam in that video. Should be good. That's just going to be strictly on feminism. This is more one of these tie-in videos where I'm taking a few different concepts and sort of tying them together for you, just so you get a sense for the pattern, right? The actual pattern that we're navigating in this case. And it's an important pattern because there's a lot tied up in feminism. And in order to understand all the things that are tied up in feminism, you sort of have to understand the flat world. You have to understand the implications of what happens in a flat world and this opposition. One of the sort of patterns that that we're noticing is there's been a change in the idea of the love triangle, right? So the classic sort of love triangle story would be Casablanca. Right. And in Casablanca, I'm not going to go over the whole thing, right? But basically what happens is the one beautiful woman has to decide between two men, pawns that decision off to one of the men, doesn't make it herself. She said she can't make it. And he decides for her. And the decision that he makes is for the virtuous thing, the thing of the highest value, rather explicitly. Right? Like this is the framing in the movie. We can argue about whether or not it should be that way, but that's the framing in the movie. And nowadays, this idea of love triangle has been reduced to properties of people, right? Or maybe properties of properties that people possess, right? Like material properties. So that's not better. Like that's clear. That's no good. Like that's not good at all. So, there's a difference there, right? And it's a significant difference. And this is part of the flat world that's caused by feminism, among other things. It's not the only cause, but feminism definitely a cause. And feminism does this through equality. So I was listening to the Whatever podcast, which is interesting. And it's a podcast on dating, and there's all these women around the table, and they're speaking about all kinds of things are being questioned, right? Andrew Wilson is in this particular one, and they're being questioned on like where they stand in the world and what they really want and whether or not this makes any sense, right? So what they end up with is they are happy to have a man stand up to them, uh, or stand up for them rather, when they're in a situation where they're out with their boyfriends and the you know another guy assaults them in some way, just you know, pats them on the ass or something. They're happy to say, "Oh no, my boyfriend should stand up for me if somebody tries to take me away from him effectively," right? But then when it comes to the question of, well, look, if there were a car coming at both of you, and it was only time for him to push you out of the way, or get himself out of the way, which would you prefer? Almost all of them are wishy-washy on this issue. This makes no sense. It's logically inconsistent, right? Um, it's not uh, commensurate, we'll say, with normal values. Um, and the issue is the dying. Well, we don't want men. I don't want a man to die for me, right? And this is an inversion of reality, and it's a failure of thinking your ideas through, right? And you're not thinking of the implication of the action over time, right? Or the lack of ability to engage with principles. Principles stay stable over time and condition, right? For better or for worse. We can argue like there are bad principles. That's probably the case. These women clearly haven't thought that out. They're living in a flat world. This is how I know they're feminists, right? They're definitely feminists. They want this equality. They're like, well, my life and his life are equal. Like, what? I mean, they said this, some of them. It's like, what? No, they're definitely not equal. Um, and they also, they don't want the men to step up or to have to step up, right? And if women don't ask men to step up, men won't know what to do. They get all of their important signals from women. Uh, they don't have to, but if they don't, bad things happen. Well, it's the problem with men. There you go. That's it. It's not that hard. And why is this so? It's because I've said this before. Women point and men build or they smash. Women point, right? And men build or they smash. That's how it works, right? That is this image. This image is about that. The woman is pointing over the man's head to the star. The man can't see it. It's above his head. It's directly above his head. He's no way he can see it. The man is pointing down at a thing that he built to make the woman his height. Right? The man builds something to make the woman equal in some sense, right? And she's pointing at the higher thing. He can't see that. She can't see what she's standing on. A lot of it is taking it on faith. That's what a lot of it boils down to at the end of the day. It's really important to understand that that interaction exists in the world. That's how you fight this ridiculous equality doctrine, that one aspect of which is feminism. Feminism is one version of equality doctrine. And the thing is, when women aren't signaling to men what they should do and what they shouldn't do, and very clearly, although not in propositions, we'll say, uh, it just exemplifies how and why feminism is sterile and robs women of their full potential, right? While sterilizing men as well, because it turns out, who knew, it's hard to have kids without a woman. Hence, men and women are not equal. One man, lots of women, kind of going to work out okay. It's not great, but it's going to work out okay, right? Nice asymmetry, right? The other way around, not so much. Blame evolution, blame Darwin. I don't care. It is what it is. Like, that's the way it is. Maybe you don't like that that's the way it is, but like also that's where you are. You're stuck in that world. I'm stuck in that world too. I'm just not complaining about it. And feminism is complaining about it, right? But feminism causes both of these issues: equality flattening the world, right? And it causes opposition, right? Because the way it flattens the world is by saying men are above you and they shouldn't be. So we've got to bring them down. But that's not actually true, right? It's just feminism, just basically a bunch of lies to everybody about everything, effectively, right? Feminism was historically born of anger and resentment, right? It's born out of this idea of competition. You want to know where the competition came from? It didn't come from men. Men compete, yeah, and they compete better than women in all cases. Sorry, just is what it is. Um, they don't win all games, but they compete. Women start to compete with men in feminism, and this makes opponents of women by bringing them down to the level of men. Don't do that. And once you're all on the same level, though, you must compete. And it's hard to cooperate. No one can lift anyone else up. I can't build something for a woman to stand on if we're busy uh, on the same level competing in opposition with one another. That's what opposition creates. It creates competition as such. So what happens in a flat world? I mean, opposition has to happen in a flat world because you can't go up or down. You can't escape the conflict in a way that is generative for both of you. Whether that's another man or a man and a woman or another woman, it doesn't matter. Like all you have is a cross. You have to bump into everybody because you're all sitting on the flat plane, on the same flat plane. That's what equality is. Equality is opposition. They don't tell you that. Of course not. They're evil. They're hiding the ball. They're trying to get something done. Most of that is knocking you down and telling you that you know you can't be on the top, right? Some of it's lifting people up so that they're in the game fighting you too, right? And then there's more people fighting you, and then you can't rise up. Another problem. That's a bigger problem in some sense. Yeah, we don't have good exemplars. Why? No one's raising up good exemplars. Everyone's busy fighting. Problem solved. You want to fight the power, you want to, go against these woke people or whatever. You're not raising up exemplars with your time, energy, and attention. Okay, those are related, right? Can't do two things at once. You can't properly cooperate. And look, things emerge, and sometimes those things that emerge are good, at least in the short term, and the short term can be a long time for sure, right? But are they good? And if you can't look up, how do you know they're good? Everything that emerges is going to look equally good in a world where novelty and emergence are indiscernible. Novel things are not necessarily good. Saying novel and saying emergent are the same thing. Oh, emergence. Okay, you mean novelty. It's the same thing. In a flat plane, you can only have something if someone else gives it up to you or you take it from them. You can look at Karl Marx and communism and all that nonsense, and they put everything in that frame. This person took that from you. You'd have it if they didn't. Oh, really? You'd have the iPhone if Steve Jobs hadn't taken the idea from you. Let's suppose he did take the idea from you. You weren't going to build it anyway. Be honest. You don't have that skill. If you did build it, you couldn't market it the way he did. Be honest. You don't have that skill. If you did build it and market it, you would have built the company. Be honest. Like, that's the thing. Uh, Marxism is a lie. Communism is a lie. It assumes things. It's middle out thinking. I have a video on that, obviously. It assumes that things already pre-exist and they just get moved around and everything is preserved intact. That's not the world at all. Right? That's not how it is. And it's all competition between, in the case of feminism, men and women, between men and corporations, between women and other women. It's opposition all the way down. Haha. So, how's that rebel spirit working out for you now? You like being a rebel, a dissident, a revolutionary, an insurgent, a subversive, an agitator, a fighter? You want to rise up? You want to rage against the machine? Great band back in the day. That's all opposition. You are the problem. Infiltrate and repair. Make things better instead. Put yourself with your high virtues and values, if you in fact have them, in the place of somebody lesser. That'll improve the system because you need the system. You ain't getting around the system. This is the lie of communism. Get around the system. The system's there. The system's going to be there. Hierarchy is real and isn't going away. You can pretend that you can live in a non-hierarchical world where managers aren't needed or where owners aren't needed or where talent isn't needed or where workers are just as talented as people who actually design things or people who actually market things or people who actually run things. But that isn't true. You probably know this, not so deep down. The way to make things better is to supplant somebody who isn't making things better. That's all. And are you going to be able to do that in the way you want, when you want, how you want? Probably not. That's because you suck, by the way. And also, the world sucks. And we're just mired in imperfection all the way down. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, or at least try to do it. And try again if it doesn't work the first 17 times. Sorry. Terrible world. That's how you learn. Learning is just a bunch of failures stacked on top of each other. The thing is, flattening is one way that feminism corrupts. But there's something worse, right? Because people need things to do. Something has to provide, right? When it's not men, it becomes corporations. Right? Now you don't have to get the provisions from the corporation or from the business through the man. You can get it directly for yourself. That's true. You could have direct access. That's what feminism promises. And that is what feminism delivers. Right? But now you're in competition with men too, because corporations hire women and men all of a sudden. There's a meme running around, working for a random man running a corporation, or even it's a female-led company, or a husband. Not much of a change, right? There's not much difference. But one is worse, and one is better. I'll sort of leave it to you to figure that one out. Keep in mind that the woman's attention is going to the corporation instead of the man, the children, the family. That's a flat world. That's opposition. You've escaped nothing. Feminism is nothing but lies. It's a flat world, equality first, second, and third, and only system that cannot work, that can only create conflict in the world. Conflict with yourself, conflict with everybody around you. That's all it can do. It can't give you anything else. It can offer you other things, but it can't provide those things. There's a difference between promises, right, and things delivered upon. Feminism makes lots of promises and delivers nothing except opposition through equality. Equality sounds lovely. These are the elements of a flat world. Politics, flat world framing. Economics, flat world framing. Culture war, flat world framing. Psychology, flat world framing. Science, flat world. These are flat worlds. They're ways of thinking about the world that don't aim up. They don't talk about virtues and values. They can't. And I first sort of noticed this when people started calling everything political, like everything. I'm like, I don't know. That wasn't political yesterday, literally. When did it become political? And this is a result of bad framing, which almost always leads to a flat world. You frame things poorly, you're going to get a flat world. That's what you're going to get. And the thing is, people don't realize this. You can put anything in a political frame. It's really not that hard. It's not like some great magical trick that only people with a 160 IQ can do. Pretty much anybody can do it. But the fact of the matter is, it isn't hard. And does it make it political? I mean, I can say education is political. I can say, oh, we need to pass a law about education. And once we pass a law about education, that makes it a political issue. Well, what isn't a political issue at that point? You could pass a law about anything. Does that make everything a political issue? How is this helpful? Very flat world framing. If everything's political, that's a flat world. We're in opposition again. Now we're in political opposition, and politics has to be boiled down to two parties ultimately. There's always a party in control and an opposition party. There might be more than one opposition party, but there's always a party in control and opposition party or parties. It's still only two buckets, guys. It's still binary. It's still flat. It's still opposition. It's still identification for and against, for control and for opposition. Don't identify with opposition. That's not a thing you can identify with. That's bad framing. That's flat world. What do restaurants serve? That could be political. We say, oh, restaurants shouldn't serve raw meat. I don't know why that would be true. We need to pass a law. Now it's political. What? How about how business is advertised? Is that political? How about business? Is business political? Education? What? Where? Where is it that things are always political? How do these things always become political? I don't understand. Do they have to be political? Should they be political? They weren't in the past. Why should you consider them political? Because someone voted on them? Because there was a law passed about them? Because the news said the word politics and then education? And you can rope anything into politics. You absolutely you can. Should you? Does it help? Is that useful? Is it good? I don't think it's good. And look, you can sort of push back and you can say, equality, why do people like equality? Maybe the problem is liking equality. What's the appeal to equality? Well, look, with equality, no one's greater than you. You are equal to the greatest person in the world with equality. That is true. If we lived in an equal world, which we cannot, that would be true. Men would be equal to women, which would raise men up, by the way, but whatever. Women want equality. Go ahead. When no one's above you, when everyone's equal, there's no judgment. There can't be. You can't judge me. This is a trick, obviously, because I've gone over this in a previous live stream. Judgment's inevitable, right? In order to take an action, you made a judgment. Whether you admit it to yourself or not, it's kind of irrelevant. That happened. But the problem is, there's no one to help you up. And there's no way for you to help others, right? Unless you put them down first, right? That's this sort of, does it like sound familiar? This is the soft bigotry of low expectations, right? Fighting on behalf of someone else. Like, oh, the poor Indians and the tribal, use of Indian war paint and symbols in football. It's like, oh, the ones done by the Native Americans who were very happy to do it. Like, is that? Why did you put them down? Oh, so you had somebody to raise up, so you could feel virtuous and righteous because you're not looking up, you're not aimed up. So you have to put someone down to bring them up so that you can say, I was above you, but now you're equal to me, and that makes me better than you. That's all that's going on there. If you think it's something else, you're fooling yourself. And look around. I mean, do you see this anywhere? Do you see anybody putting groups down and then trying to bring them up? Voter ID, anyone? And the other problem is equality causes people to be left to their own desires with no one to help them. What does that mean? That means if you're an alcoholic, you're going to be an alcoholic forever and no one's going to help you. If you're a drug addict, you're going to be a drug addict forever and no one's going to help you. Why? They can't. They're equal to you. You're equal to them. Well, if I'm equal to you, I can't help you. First of all, I got my own stuff to deal with. Second of all, I don't have any special skills that you don't already have or couldn't already have. How am I going to help you? It doesn't even make any sense. Is that what you want? I mean, you'll be alone. You'll be equal and individual, right? With no way for others to help you and no expectation that they ever could do so. Is that what you want? Is that how you want to live? You want to live alone as an individual with no one to help you and no way to be helped and no one for you to help? You can't better the world and you can't better yourself and no one else can better you either. Equality and hell sound kind of the same to me, but whatever. But again, there's one big advantage. There can be no judgment. In equality, there's no authority, there's no leadership, and there's no discernment. But again, there's still no help for you or anyone else. Everyone's suffering alone as an individual. Everyone's struggling all by themselves. And the thing is, if you try to be an individual, if you try to be apart, right, from the rest of the world, which is what being an individual is, you will suffer. Your struggles will be increased. No worries. That's going to happen. And you'll also be alone. For no reason other than you're forcing it on others, right? You're forcing yourself away from others. Welcome to the intimacy crisis. This is one of the things that feminism does, and it cannot really do much else. Flattens the world, separates you from others explicitly. Women don't want to be beholden to men. Well, being beholden means you also lose all the advantages of being attached, of being related, of being connected. All the qualities of a relationship go away because you're equal. There's no difference in the quality of the relationship. No, maybe now you can date women as well as men. Is that better? Maybe that's why the other women are telling you feminism is good, because they're actually lesbians. Maybe they're slaves to their desire, their hedonistic desires. And they want you involved in that because maybe the more hedonists in the hedonism tribe, the better for them. They feel safer. They feel morally justified. Are you sure that isn't part of the motivation? Because I'm sure it is. And feminism does an excellent job of using materialism, quantity, to tell you that men and women should be equal. Because they're like roughly an equal number. Yeah, right now, not after World War II or World War I. Didn't think about that, did you? Historically, that hasn't been the case. And people are people after all, so we should value them the same. Ignore the fact that some can bear children and some cannot. Rage against the machine, baby. Go ahead. Let me know how that works out for you. Opposition. That's what we're talking about. Opposition. So what sort of other problems do you have in one of these flat world scenarios, whether it be politics or feminism or whatever, economics? Determinism. This is in direct opposition to virtues and values. In determinism, you don't need virtues and values. They're irrelevant. Things are determined. You don't need free will. It doesn't exist anyway, but you wouldn't need it in a deterministic world. It becomes irrelevant. The The ability to be responsible. What in a flat world, like what what's responsibility? It's meaningless. Or the need to be responsible. Why? Why do you need to be responsible if things are determined? You're free from your actions, the results and consequences of your actions in particular, but also having to have actions. You can just sit around, play video games all day, and let the world pass you by. It'll be fine. This is the result of the flat world. How else can the world be if it's flat? Because we can calculate how it will unfold if it's flat. It's completely mathematical. We aren't responsible at all. And once we've done it, we realize meaning is gone. Everything is pointless. Nihilism is here to stay then. Might as well play video games with my time. It's okay. Rage against the machine. You have a machine to rage against. It's determinism. Like, if you really can't change the political system, why not play video games? Or maybe the way you're trying to change the political system is just wrong. And there's a way to do it, but you're not putting in the work, or you're not putting in the right work. The problem with rage against the machine, with rebelling, with trying to change things over and over again when it's not working for you, is that you get more angry and resentful. Then you put more of your time, energy, and attention in the wrong direction or towards the wrong thing or apply it in the wrong way. And that's not good for you. It's not good for me. And it's not good for the world. I'd prefer you not. It's all well and good, Muppet. How do we aim up? What does up even look like? Up is a realm of virtues and values. Things that are up are precious. They should be protected. They have value. They are virtuous. They cannot be quantified or flattened. They reciprocally open, to use some fancy Vervaeke words. They add to the world. They do not reduce the world. They do not simplify things. But that allows for potential. It allows for more. It allows for better. It allows for greater. It gives you things to strive for instead of things to run away from. In a flat world, you have to run away from things. It gives you an ideal to look towards, to look up at, to try to exemplify. Exemplification is something you do based on something above you, bigger than you, greater than you, better than you are now. You can identify with that thing out there in the future. And maybe it's more than you thought you could be or imagined that you could be. And maybe you can't attain it exactly, but maybe you could try and maybe you get real close. And maybe that would be better than now because it would be. Looking up, virtues and values, aiming higher, they open the world to your possibility. That possibility in your imagination. And reality constrains that for you. So, it's balance indeed. Maybe you can't be the thing in your imagination. Maybe you imagine you could be Elon Musk and you just won't sleep under your desk at work. And so you can't be Elon Musk or any number of other things that he does that aren't just being smart, we'll say. This non-flat world, this enchanted world, if you will, that's where miracles are. You want miracles or do you want hopelessness? So you can't have both. You gotta pick one. Flat world, ain't no miracles, ain't no potential, ain't no possibility. It's not there. Feminism, no miracles, no potential, no possibilities, not there. Just equality and conflict and opposition. That's all it gets you. all alone as an individual, bumping into other individuals in the world. It's not great. Cannot recommend. And you see this flattening of the world and the destruction of the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts. Was that better? Destroying those two organizations? Eagle Scouts were highly valued in corporations, in the military. Automatic bumps up, man. Extra points for having been an industrious teenager. Having learned those skills, gotten your totem chip. Or your fireman's chip. Have them both. They all have the corners. Nothing clipped off. This destruction of organizations like that, which exemplify, we'll say, the ideals for men on the Boy Scout side and the ideals for women on the Girl Scout side, right? Allowing them to play out what it would be like to be an adult, a good adult, an adult in virtues and values, forming them, not teaching them, not educating them, not training them, forming them, maybe with the aids of training, but forming them to be better is a good thing. Getting rid of these things is the result of a flat world. Welcome to it. No one's pointing up to virtues and values like the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts. No one's doing this now, not for the children. They can decide what gender they are today and whether or not they want to ruin their lives forever by getting surgery, or whether or not they want to engage in sexual activity with adults. That's the world we're in now. Do you think it's a coincidence that we destroy the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and then we get this garbage? I don't think so. We need more communities like the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, which were real communities based around virtues and values, based around the discussions about what is best and why, based around sharing like-minded, long-lasting, important topics. I call them philosophical topics, not my favorite word in the world, but those topics that make the world better for those after us than we had it for ourselves. First, we have to know how good the world is now. Then we have to know, how did people in the past make the world that we have today? And then we have to discern things that they did in the past, which of them made things better and which of them did not. And then we have to determine, are the things that are saying not better now our fault or their fault? We're not having those discussions. Some people are starting to have those discussions, but we need those discussions locally everywhere. We need little wisdom communities. And we're working on that document still. If you want to help, let me know. We need ways to raise people up, find leaders, because leaders, you can't make anybody a leader. It's not an equality doctrine guy, and have them lead these little communities where these discussions can happen. Someone's got to organize things. Someone's got to keep the lights on. Someone's got to get it rolling. Someone's got to show up, even if no one else does, which sucks. I've done it many times, but eventually it pays off. Someone's got to do it, and more than someone, right? You need a team. You're not going to do it as an individual by yourself. It's not going to happen. Almost no one does that. Everybody that you think does that is probably lying about it, or they're telling you outright they're not doing it alone, and you're just ignoring that part because you don't want to believe it. Fair enough. People have lied to you your whole life about what you can and can't do by yourself and how smart you are. And you're an idiot. You're a muppet. I'm a muppet. We're all muppets. Get over it. Things are easier when you do them with groups of people anyway, and your work is better. Sorry, is what it is. Two minds are better than one. Distributed cognition is real. We need to help young folks recognize the value that they've gotten from the world that came before them and from the world that we're building for them. And we need them to be grateful for that. And we need ourselves in that same position. And we've lost all that. And this is not a good thing. This is not a helpful thing. So what is it that you need to do? You need to revivify, to renew, to improve, to use your time, energy, and attention, T, to make things better, rather than using that same time, energy, and attention to complain about things. You can improve things. Sometimes you have to do horrible things to make things better, for sure. That's true. Compromise is everywhere. But if you do compromise, if you do cooperate somewhat, you can do something that would be done less well by somebody else way better. You could do that. Aim up. You can do it. I know you can. You can be better than you were, and you can be better than you are. And you can be better in ways you cannot imagine. Aim up. Put in the work. Don't waste your time, energy, and attention on video games or anger and resentment or constant knowledge seeking, constant learning. People who do nothing but learn do nothing. That's the problem. Learning feels good to you, but it doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't do anything for anyone around you except remove your time, energy, and attention from them. That's not better for them. And it's not better for you. It's just not better. It doesn't mean don't ever learn anything, but also, the best way to learn is to do. Participatory knowing, as John Vervaeke says, which I somewhat disagree with, but you got to inform your understanding of reality with participation. You can't understand reality any other way. You can't understand reality through procedures, through propositions, or through poetics. You actually can't. Only way you can understand reality is through participation. That's it. That's it. That's all you got. You want reality? You probably don't, but participate. That'll give it to you. It'll give it to you. You might not be happy with what you get, but you'll get reality. And if you rebel against that, it's not going to go well for you. It may seem to go okay for a very long time. I agree. That's going to catch up to you. You're going to pay that bill with interest. That, my friends, is all I have to say about that. I hope you understand better what I mean by flat world, why feminism is a flat world frame, and why framing is important, because it leads to this. Ixnot, I'm glad you explained that image because I was never going to figure that out. I always vacillate on explaining the image, right? Because in some ways, you're demystifying it. You're disenchanting it when you put the propositions to it. I gave you a small spattering of the symbolism in this image. There's a lot more symbolism in the image. I don't want to disenchant it. So I'm not gonna go into any more. I'm just gonna say the pointing is really important. Look what's being pointed at, right? The fact that you think that my explanation is important or that you're glad for it is concerning to me. It's not good. You should be able to get a feel for the image from staring long enough at the image. This is why people look at art and stare at art, because the longer you stare at the art, the better a sense for other art you get, right? It's not to say that some small explanations aren't helpful, won't point you in a direction to open you up to more information, more ways of thinking about art. Of course, they will, because propositions are useful. They're useful pointers. We need them. Can't do without propositions, right? But also, it's not the right way to do it. Like wanting explanations for things is actually really bad. That's how you get conspiracy theories. People want explanations, and The more explanations you have, the more conspiracies you have. Uh, and a lot of times people say they're giving you an explanation, they're giving you a description. And there are lots of ways to describe things, the same thing. And those ways can all be correct and all useless and pointless and unhelpful and lead you down a bad path. And that's sort of the problem, right? You can describe thunder as, sound waves being created by a lightning strike, which is, I mean, you go all the way down the scientific rabbit hole with that, right? And there's a movement of air, and that creates this thunder, and that thunder, reverberates. Or you can say it's Zeus, right? Those are equally useful descriptions at some point because they're equally prescriptive and they're equally predictive, which is to say, not at all. And so, uh, the quality, the explanation is the same too. Like, uh, action potential of electrical charge differential between the Earth and the atmosphere, or Zeus is pissed off. Explanation is the same basic value at the end of the day. Maybe people don't like that, but that's true. And so people go after descriptions and explanations. Um, when maybe they shouldn't. Like maybe description and explanations are not the best thing in the world because that is literally where we get conspiracies from. So, um, look, I'm not going to be able to do this for the next 2 weeks, most likely. I don't think I'm going to do this while I'm on vacation here, while I'm traveling, um, which is okay because no one's watching anyway. Man, just drop off from last week into this week. But uh, I will be back at it when I get back. I do enjoy doing these, even if nobody's watching. And if you want to join, I will post a link. You can jump in. We can talk about anything. I'd rather stick to the topic. Let's stay away from sort of the more personal aspects. I want to sort of keep it high level. Personal stories are good as long as they're sort of topical about something greater than, we'll say, the engagement of yourself with yourself or something. A lot of people get stuck there, and fair enough. Like people get stuck in different places, but not helpful. Like you don't want to get stuck in places like that. You want to kind of look up, right? And a lot of this is about aiming up, getting rid of that flat world sort of mentality. And I think that's what's important. When you don't see it, you get stuck in these flat world frames like politics and feminism, and you sort of see this. You end up LARPing when you're not participating in reality. I talked about this, right? My 2014 live stream. Lauren Southern, man. I mean, conservative. What definition are you using? She was never conservative. Politics. What definition are you using? You were never in politics. That's ridiculous. And people get lost in these frames because it's a flat world to them. Politics is important. Politics isn't actually all that important. Politics doesn't affect your life. Politics is downstream of culture. It's weird. Tim Pool says it. Shagun Makad was saying it, right? Now Carl Benjamin, like they were saying that all along. That's still true. These are the projections, the end results. You're not gonna change the dog by wagging the tail. Like that is politics is the tail end. The corrupt society is already manifested by the time the corruption makes it to politics. Like, too late. Game over. Not to say that you shouldn't, go into politics as a virtuous person and try to fix it. You should. But like the problems already manifest at the lower, more important layers. Trying to fix it at the top's not going to work at all. Um, if that's the only thing you try to do, it's not going to. I mean, Rand Paul, Ron Paul, like they couldn't do any good. Not that they didn't do good things, right? But they couldn't right the ship. The ship got worse while they were there. That's not their fault. I mean, it would have gotten worse quicker without them for sure. But like it didn't. It doesn't work. We know it doesn't work. We've seen it not work. We need to get the message. and work at the local level so that we change the culture. What's the culture? The culture is the people around you. The culture isn't anywhere else. It's the people you have direct, immediate access to. That's where the culture is. Politics is downstream of that. Well, change the culture, politics will follow. It'll take longer than you want. You don't have a choice. You don't have an option. It's just the way it works. You have the most control, the most influence where you are physically. You have the least influence on YouTube. Believe me, I'm on YouTube. I have no influence, right? The people that you're with that you can help, physical hand up or physical backhand when they're misbehaving, those are the people you have the most influence over. Believe me, it works. Helping people out of a bad spot, yeah, you have a lot more influence over their lives. You hear those stories all the time. Super important. Like super important. When your head is filled with these heroic stories and this freaking MCU nonsense, um, they're trying to do things they can't do, and that's not good for them, and it's not good for you, and it's not good for the culture. It's not good for society. When everyone's trying to be the hero and be on the hero's journey and be like this lone hero who saves the day at some layer of reality that they don't exist at, you don't exist at the cultural layer. You exist under it. You are a component of it. So are all other people, by the way. Sally Joe. What? You can't vote people into agreement? Who knew? Right. Right. Can't vote people into agreement. Uh, you can't vote people into doing things. I mean, they passed mask mandates in countries all over the world and didn't work. A lot of them had to back them out. Had to back it out in the US. Not that it didn't cause a lot of damage. It did. That was bad, but it didn't work. That's even worse. You do something that doesn't work, that means you created a lot of damage. That's not better. And we need better, right? We don't need perfect. We don't need pure. We just need better. Aiming up isn't about reaching the goal. It's about having a goal to reach. Those are different things, very asymmetrical. And reaching a goal is a final thing. And having a goal to reach is not. Right? Having a goal to reach is something ongoing. Reaching a goal is the end, the finality. It's the need for renewal. Is that what you want? You want to be in a position where you're done and you have to start over and renew everything? Is that what you want? I don't know. Took a lot of work to get there in the first place. You want it all over? That's why a lot of people win gold medals and go straight downhill afterwards. Oops. A lot of people reach the top of their profession, go straight downhill afterwards. Oops. They don't have a new goal, a new highest value to go after. They don't have that ability to revivify the game of pursuit. That's why having a goal and reaching the goal are not the same thing. When you have something that keeps moving, you can keep moving. That's why exemplification is important. Exemplification can be upgraded, changed, understood deeper, more nuanced. Once you've achieved your goal, you can't understand it any better. It's already over. It's done. And you can gain a better understanding of what happened to you afterwards. Anybody can do that with anything, though. That's not the same thing, though, is it? This is why this is important. This is why the flat world is dangerous, because it leads us down this path, this flat world path of having mode, obtaining, right? Finality, not this mode of constant betterment, revivification, right? Where you're able to keep going indefinitely, where you're just going higher and higher and higher instead of reaching the top and then having to come back down. The deep asymmetry there that we're missing. This is why equality is bad. You don't want equality. If you did want equality, you'd be an evolution denier. None of the theories in the set of evolution work if equality exists at all. They all fail. Evolution deny much? I sort of highly recommend the evolution denier frame for people that want equality. Let them deal with having to pick. Trade-offs. I have a video on trade-offs. Trade-offs are important. Trade-offs are really important. Cost is a thing. Things cost. They're not free. You don't get away with it. It's not what happens. We don't live in a flat world where we take from others or they give up to us. We don't live there. We can create things. The iPhone didn't used to exist. The internet wasn't a thing at some point. Computers not around. Somebody created those things. Did they get fairly compensated? Almost certainly not. Did they get compensated? Almost certainly. Is that the best you can do in an imperfect world? Maybe. But you're not doing any worse than anyone else and getting screwed. So why worry about it? It doesn't mean don't fight for justice, although with the quote justice system we have, you ain't gonna get it there. Uh, but it does mean, be a little more content with what you do get, because maybe you got more than someone else, and maybe that someone else deserved more than you got. Maybe. I know it doesn't feel that way. It never feels that way. But also, what the hell do you know? Value is a negotiation between two or more people. Value is not out in the objective material reality somewhere. Value is always negotiation. And value is also always subject to time, not just condition. Right? Always. Right? Day old bread or week old bread, as it really is worth less than fresh bread. Sorry. Time matters. Time changes value. Conditions change value. I'm hungry, bread's worth more. I'm not hungry, bread's worth less. You might not have to pay more, but it's worth more to a hungry man than it is to someone who's not hungry at all. These are real things that happen in the real world where it's not flat, where economics doesn't rule and flatten the world down to mere monetary value, where things aren't obtainable by the exchange of fiat currency. All currency is fiat, by the way. You can't find a non-fiat currency. Good luck trying. That's the issue. We want a perfect world. A perfect world is flat. It's deterministic. It's completely knowable. It's also nihilism and death and boring and valueless. You're valueless in a flat world. Is that what you want? You're alone in a flat world. Unless you oppose somebody, that's the only way you can validate your existence in a flat world. Is that what you want? Are you sure? Intimacy crisis confirmed. Sally Joe, did we catch why equality is cruel? Well, it's cruel because it separates you from everybody else. Sally Joe, if I could come on, I'd go for that one. Why equality is cruel. I mean, equality is cruel because you can't discern yourself from anyone else. And therefore, you don't have any more value than anyone else. And everybody has no value because you can't measure value in equality land. It's not there, it's indeterminate and indeterminable. It's inestimable and it's zero. And you can't differentiate it from zero. That's why equality is cruel. Sally Joe, it's cruel because tall people build cupboards. Uh, then they wouldn't be equal if they were tall people, Sally. It's only true if you're really short. No one's that short, though, except you and Sarah. Girls are short. It's not my fault. But feminism says you're equal, so it's fine. They sell the lie pretty well. Like, nobody figured that one out. Men and women are equal. They're not even equal height on average. Like, what are you even? Where are you getting this from? Oh, I see. You're getting it from pure rebellion. That's where feminism gets it from. Rebellion. We don't like the world the way it is. We want it to be the way we want it to be. That's the entirety of feminism. It's all fantasy. It's all the fantasy of a couple of angry women. Oddly, who were angry about different things. Some feminists didn't want women to have the right to vote. Some women didn't want them to be single. They were like, no, you should be married but equal. It doesn't sound like it makes sense to us, but it made sense to them. Ixnon, remember what Randy Newman said about short people? Yes, short people got no reason to live. That's what he said. Sally, Joe, I'm only short because of the oppression. Yes, in an equal world, you would not be short. That is true. And therefore, inequality is oppression. Also true. Also true. But you're all equally oppressed by the fact that you're not the highest thing. Virtues and values oppresses everybody and judges everybody. And it's brutal. It's absolutely freaking brutal. Sally Joe, in an equal world, they would give me robot knees that would make me equal. That wouldn't be horrifying at all. No. Robot knees would not be horrifying at all. Except I'm already horrified just thinking about you having robot knees. Yeah, I think that would be horrifying. Sorry, Sally. Can't agree with you there. Speaking of thunder, man, there's thunder and lightning coming out the window. It just got dark out. It wasn't really dark. Now it's sort of taking over. I would imagine the storms are to the south of me, since what little view I have to the north doesn't look too bad. But yeah. No takers for joining tonight. I've got my tea and my Sampel in my Muppet cup, so you can consider. You should consider, you know. Yeah, I'm gonna going on vacation, going to New England. I got a timeshare on Cape Cod. Chill out by the ocean. Hopefully, it won't be too chilly. It's a little too early in the year for the Cape. It's like right on the cusp. I mean, it's after Memorial Day when I get up there, but sometimes not the best time to be in New England. Not quite summery enough, uh, and it's not super hot down here usually. So, although sometimes it is. Sometimes it'll be 100 degrees down here at the beginning of June. South Carolina gets hot. So, be away for a couple of weeks. I'll be back, figure out a new topic. If you get any suggestions, throw them in the comments. Hopefully, tying all these things together makes a little bit of sense to people and sort of helps. And hopefully we'll get that feminism video out too next week or two if we're lucky. Sally Joe, someone not oppressed by parenting the next generation, please join the stream. In questions. You're definitely oppressed by parenting. And that's why people don't want to have kids. I mean, kids are oppression. Absolutely. Raising kids is oppression. Yep, it sure is. And one way to get around it is to have kids and make them equal to adults. Then you don't have to raise them, at least in theory. Um, I mean, that's part of where all this is coming from. It's just equality doctrine kills the world. Equality doctrine kills the world. Equality doctrine causes feminism. Feminism encourages some form of equality, and it just kills the world because we're not equal. We're not going to be equal. Evolution is true. We're not equal. We're all different. Sorry, for better or for worse, right? And we don't like it because then we get judged. There are things above us judging us. Terrible. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Why? Why? Daniel Riera. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Enchantment's video soon. Do you have any idea how hard it is to talk about enchantment? No, actually, this laid the groundwork for that. If you didn't catch that, you'll have to rewind and listen again. The problem with enchantment is that first you have to lay out a really clear definition for people. And it's a good question, like video or live stream, right? And maybe both, because sometimes I do both. I do a video on something on a live stream. Maybe not even in that order. So I do live streams and then I do the recorded videos on them. Yeah, enchantment's just really hard to talk about. That's the bottom line there. And I'm glad you reminded me because I have to be reminded of these things. There's so many. I probably still have 200 videos I want to do recorded. And live streams just come up all the time. Oh, here we go. Arandu. Magic happens live. I will let me grab that comment. I will grab that idea here. And I will write that down for the potential title for a future live stream. Magic happens live. I love it. Yeah, I'm not sure how much I want to equate enchantment and magic, by the way, but also yes, also magic is part of enchantment for sure. So there's definitely a there somewhere. So maybe both, maybe a recorded video on enchantment and a live stream, maybe a conversational video. I've got Intimacy Crisis Part 2 with Catherine coming out soon. Daniel, I just enjoyed the concept when you were mentioning it about Destiny, right? Who I happen not to mind, and his enchantments he uses. See, this is the problem. Like, I keep struggling with this. I do have some notes somewhere on all the enchantment types because there's logical enchantment where things fit together, right? There's tonal enchantment that you can use on people, and they get very sucked in by the nice, quiet tone. I won't try to do it correctly because you guys don't need that. You have no idea. If I really put my mind to it, right? And there's also charismatic enchantment. Like, these are all different types of enchantment, right? And those are just conversational forms of enchantment. There's other forms of enchantment. There's probably a dozen, I think. But I'd have to sit and I got to get examples. I got to get them all nailed down. A lot of work goes into this stuff. That's part of the problem. It just takes a lot of work, and I don't have a lot of energy. I'm trying to do 17 billion things, and I keep getting sick, and on and on and on. So hopefully I'll get a bunch of work done while I'm quote on vacation, because it's usually what happens. Hopefully, right? And I'll be able to do it better. And that's part of the problem, is that you have to have examples for people, and I don't think I do a good enough job as it is, but I'm trying to do better. Um, Daniel, Terence McKenna's inflection is tonal enchantment heaven. Yeah, probably. Michelle, my friend, thank you so much, sir. Uh, does the flat world, by refusing intimate connections, yes, it really does, diminish our ability to truly cooperate and help one another, leading to isolation and superficial success? Yes, it does. Well, it forces superficial success. When you're in a flat world, you can only compare yourself relativistically to other people, right? Or to other things, material things in the world, right? You can compare like how big your house is to how big someone else's house is. You don't really have a choice though. Like you can't, in a flat world, you can't compare yourself to something that much higher than you, right? And that isolates you because you're ignoring the quality connections. And people talk, it's weird. People actually talk about this all the time, right? They say like, "Oh yeah, you've got a lot of money. Maybe you've got a hot girlfriend or whatever, but like is she going to be around when, if something happens to you? Cuz something's going to happen to you." Right? I mean, one of the problems that we have is we don't recognize betrayal is the story of life. Your body will eventually betray you, one way or another, probably many ways. Apparently, Sally Joe needs robot knees, so her knees have betrayed her. Right? Like, this is real, this betrayal. People betray you all the time, right? They leave the relationship. You betray people all the time. Sometimes you don't even mean to, right? And they don't even mean to. It happens, right? People feel betrayed when other people get sick, especially they get cancer, right? Um, you get cancer, you've got some odds of, being okay, uh, and then it doesn't happen, you blame the doctor. Betrayal, right? Like, and maybe the doctor's to blame. Like, who the hell knows? The problem is we live in an imperfect world, and so the flat world cannot offer you intimacy because it destroys quality, replaces it with quantity, right? Because you can't destroy measurement, right? It's not going to work. You can try to make things equal, but it doesn't work to make things equal. That's a trick of communism, right? Everyone's equal, so everyone will just make the same decision. Well, everyone won't make the same decision because everyone's not equal, right? Can't make them equal. That's Harrison Bergeron. If you haven't read Harrison Bergeron's great short story, Kurt Vonnegut, um, like it doesn't work, right? And so they tell you the world could be equal, and if we could get it to be equal, these things would happen, and that's all lies. Like all of it's a lie. And so you can't cooperate because you're equal. There's no reason to cooperate if you're equal. Like me cooperating with you isn't going to get us anywhere, right? Because there's nothing outside of you that's not also in me, right? And so if things are in me and they're in you and we're equal, there's nothing outside. Like anything that would be outside of you wouldn't really be outside of you because it would be in me and we're equal. Like so it doesn't work. Right? It doesn't work. And so there's no point in cooperating because you can't manifest something bigger than both of us unless we have non-overlapping skill sets. If I can do everything you can do and you can do everything I can do, cooperation's not you wouldn't notice it if it happened. And again, you can't help somebody if you're not higher than them, right? Or if you're not able to lower yourself to raise them up, is maybe a better way to say it, right? That's another way to help, right? And that sucks, but also maybe that's the world we exist in. And then of course we're going to be isolated. We're going to be isolated because we're not going to be able to tell ourselves apart from other people. And if you're not able to figure out where you end and other people begin, you're alone. So you can know in theory there are other people, but if you can't tell where the boundary is, you're going to be alone. And you're not going to have a quality relationship with somebody. You're not going to be able to discern quality as such unless you can aim up. And it's not the direction of up. If everybody, wherever they're at, goes straight up, they won't all end up in the same place. What good is that? And we're not aiming for the same thing anymore. We're just aiming up. Direction is insufficient. You need aim. You need that North Star. That has to happen. If you don't have that, it's a big problem. And I know people don't like recognize that, right? They don't get it, but it's a trick. A lot of people just talk about equality in that way and they think it's attainable. And they don't realize what it would cost. They don't realize the trade-off that equality gives you, forces on you. They don't realize that cooperation vanishes and it's replaced by pure opposition. They don't realize that rage against the machine, you need the machine. You can rage against the machine all day long. They don't realize that message is in the Matrix. Humans never win against the machines in any of the three Matrix movies ever. It never happens. They don't escape machine control ever. They escape the simulation, but they don't escape the machine control. And not all of them escape the simulation, right? Eventually, it's a standoff. We have to leave some people in. Oops. Didn't work. Whole movie, garbage. Love that movie, by the way. Love The Matrix. Love all three of the movies. The fourth one's a complete flat pack catastrophe. But hopefully, I'll get back with Jesse here while I'm on vacation, and we'll start or restart the Matrix thing and see if we can get that done and see how many parts we can do it in. And the problem with the Matrix is, again, like Enchantment, there's so many pieces to talk about. Just endless. It's endless. Yeah, the Matrix is wrong in so many ways. And there's so many messages in there that you don't realize. And you think they're good and they're all bad. There's no good messages in the Matrix. It just seems like there are, right? Very sneaky. It's like feminism, very sneaky. Feminism is very sneaky because it promises you a bunch of lies that are impossible. And that even if you attained them, would cause you nothing but strife because you'd be an individual alone in the world and you'd be in opposition to everyone else. And it's a dog eat dog world. Is that where you want to live? Maybe there's a better story, right? That you can live in. That's sort of my thesis. There's definitely better stories to live in than the feminism story. You know, and this idea of being a rebel or a dissident or like why? Why do you want to do that? I get it. There's reasons to be upset with the world. I lost a house, $500,000 piece of property. Uh, yeah, what am I gonna do? Like fight the courts? What what does that look like? I went to the courts, didn't work. What am I gonna do? Go take it back by force? I don't know what that would look like, even if it were possible, right? I mean, this is fundamentally why I'm like, yeah, Occupy Wall Street was a waste. It was a waste of time, energy, and attention. They could have, instead of occupying Wall Street, occupied all the houses that were under foreclosure and just camped out at them and made it impossible to foreclose. Maybe I'd still have my house. Dun, dun, dun. Even if they didn't do that with my house, if they had done it with enough houses and people paid attention enough to what was going on and realized, oh, the courts are stealing people's houses with no paperwork and no legal recourse and no legal reason to take those houses. Maybe instead of stealing the property from the people who can't afford to lose it, we take it away from the investors who can afford to lose it. That would have been a novel approach. But Occupy Wall Street didn't do that. Not everybody. There were a couple of groups that actually did do things like, but like 4, like for real, right? It could have been so many more houses saved, so many more pieces of property put back in the hands of the people who would be more likely to do better with them. But we didn't do that, right? They rebelled. They were part of the dissident movement against Wall Street. It wasn't even Wall Street's fault, technically. The banks were lying. The banks aren't in Wall Street, guy. I hate to break it to you. The banks aren't there. That's not where the banks are. Wall Street's not going to help you. Even if you win, you don't win. Right? A strange game. The only way to win is not to play. War games had all the answers. That's the problem. We don't understand that. We don't get why rebellion is identification against and why identification against doesn't help us. Ixnon, have you seen Sargon of Akkad's latest video? Yes, I have. I watched Sargon pretty heavily. What was his latest video though? Now I don't remember off the top of my head what his topic was. Let me look real quick because it wasn't that long ago. It should be in my notifications here. Oh yeah, the American Caesar thing. Yeah, you know, I love Carl Benjamin. Sometimes he's completely wrong about things. That's another example. He's been really missing the mark lately. It's kind of too bad. Um, the problem with people who don't live in the US is they cannot understand the US at all. I mean, the English are closer because we came from, like, we improved upon their system, but Europeans, forget it. They just misunderstand everything about the US. I have a video about this with Adam it's called The Frontier of Ideas. Watch The Frontier of Ideas. I will explain to you in that video. Adam will back me up. He's a European. He's Irish. Exactly what's going on. Because people don't. I don't care how much time you spend in the US. Continental philosophy and even the philosophy of that changed that in England, because it did. The UK has a different philosophy than continental philosophy, is not ours. Okay? Ours is fundamentally different in a way that is impossible for people who aren't here to understand. If you didn't grow up here, you just don't get it, and you're not gonna. And I'm sorry about that, but also you're not gonna. Like, it's very hard. It's like these damn Westerners trying to be Buddhist and just not understanding what they're Western Buddhists, and the Eastern Buddhists are nothing like them. They just don't get it because it's a cultural change and it's a language change. See, Geography of Thought, that book by Nesbitt. Great book. It'll explain to you why you can't understand Buddhism as a Westerner. Sorry. Easterners can understand Western philosophy. Westerners cannot understand Eastern philosophy. It's not an option for almost any of them. A few. There's always exceptions, right? But like, not you. Okay, you're not the exception. Sorry. And neither of any of these guys, like Alan Watts, like, what a clown. Just talk to somebody who grew up as a Buddhist or grew up in a Buddhist family, and they will tell you Western Buddhism is wrong. Like, they will just tell. This is why I don't understand. Like, everyone's like, no. I'm like, have you talked to anybody who's like first generation here or something? Or anybody who lives over there? They'll be like, no, that's not what Buddhist practice is at all. Alan Watts got it wrong, mainly because I think my thesis is he was being taught by heretics who were here. Why were they here? Why were they in California? They were in California. California corrupts everything. I don't know why. It just does. It just happens. Why were they here? Well, they got kicked out of their countries, as it turns. You look into their histories, it's like, yeah, you did a bad thing where you have to leave. And they left and came and then talked to Alan Watts. And Alan Watts said, oh, is that what you guys believe over there? Like, no, that's not what they believed over there. And so all the stuff that we have, including the translations, are garbage, right? It's the same thing with people in Europe trying to understand the US. Like, they cannot get it. People in the UK trying to understand the US, they cannot get it. You'd have to spend years over here continuously, right? Without going back and getting polluted by stupid ideas from the continent or the islands, right? To really get it. I understand the enchantment of a good description that appears to contain a good explanation, or worse yet, one that appears to give you a good prescription or prediction. And I do have a video coming out about that, assuming my video editor gets to it. I'll explain that more in a video coming up. I guarantee it. Hopefully I did a good job. I thought it was fantastic. I was super happy after I recorded it. That'll come out soon. But those are different things. And we get caught up in a good description, especially when we have a description of something we already knew, but it's different because there's the novelty. And that's more rebellion. It's like, what if Plato had it right? Now what? How boring the world would be. Also, we'd have all the answers we wanted. They wouldn't be satisfying answers because Plato doesn't give you satisfying answers. But like, these are not mysteries. No one got past Plato. Nietzsche probably knew he wasn't. Heidegger knew he wasn't. He said he didn't get past Plato. I don't know what else to tell you. These so-called modern philosophers They didn't get past Plato. Daniel, you're really going to make me watch that 2.5 hours Frontiers of Ideas with this monologue, huh? Yes. Yes. Uh, Frontier of Ideas is excellent. Adam is awesome. I'm better with others. Sorry, just am. Uh, and that's a nice conversation. Adam has a really lot of good stuff to add, and of course, he has got all the perspective that I can't have because I don't live in Ireland. I don't live. I don't visit Europe regularly. I've been to Europe. Everything I always thought about Europe, because I always talked to people on the internet from Europe, was correct because I talked to people. But and I really listen to people. Like everybody accuses me not listening. No, I listen better than you do. I guarantee you that. Like I listen really well. I just understand things a lot more deeply than others too. And that's the issue. Like when you actually listen to Europeans, boy, you know a lot about Europe, and they don't even notice sometimes. They don't, Americans don't notice things they say about America either. The ugly American is real. Right? Oh, you should learn my language because I'm used to being in a country with one language. Uh, okay, whatever, bro. Most European countries don't speak one language. They've got lots of languages going on, and it causes those problems. But it's important to know that there are different perspectives and how different they are. And Europeans just don't see the world the way we do at a fundamental level that is very hard for us to understand. And so when they talk about our politics or what we're doing, it doesn't actually represent what's going on here. And it can't. And you can't blame them for that in some sense. Which is not to say they can't shed light on things going on over here that are helpful. They can. But when they come to conclusions about things, they're ridiculous. And this happens all over the place. So, I mentioned Colin Woodard, right, and American Nations, which is an excellent book that everybody should read. Except the ending's garbage because like almost every historian I have ever read, the closer in time they get to now, the more insane they get. Like they just get completely insane. The further back they go, the better they are. I don't know. I can come up with reasons why that might be true. Hopefully you can come up with them too, because I bet they're the same reasons. Uh, right. And I bet we're both right. Uh, right. But like he thinks Greenland is like the model. I'm like, dude, we tried that. It didn't work. Read your history on Greenland, buddy. Like he hasn't, clearly. Right? That's where it all goes wrong. On the other hand, best single book on American history I ever read is Colin Woodard's American Nations. Filled in every single thing I did not understand about American history that I just couldn't get. It's like, oh my God. Oh, this all makes sense. North versus South. Totally makes sense. New York versus Boston. I grew up in Boston. Totally makes sense now. It's way older than I thought. It's not the nouveau riche. That's not the problem. It's older than that. Right? Totally makes sense now. The difference between the Midwest, right, and the left coast, where all the evil people are, totally makes sense now. Yeah, I mean, a whole bunch of things just became clear. Canada now makes sense to me. Still, except for French Canada, a total mess. French Canada is obviously God's chosen people, being where my family's from, but coincidence. Totally makes sense now in that context. Colin Woodard, American Nations, great book, great book. Until the end, where he just goes completely off the rails and seems to lose all sense of and semblance of reality, logic, reason, rationality, sanity, uh, world perspective, engagement with what is in the world, observation right out the window. Like the guy just goes completely off the rails. It's really weird. It's weird. It was so good. Probably the best thing from that book was private versus public Protestantism. Once I understood that, I'm like, oh, the last piece, the keystone. It was like, oh, angels sang in my head. It was beautiful. I was like, wow, there it is. The one thing I did not understand the most about my country. right there. Bang. Then you recontextualize everything. Well, I can anyway. And it's like, wow, all this stuff makes sense. Why when I drove down to South Carolina would I see, you know, billboards advertising strip clubs and sex shops next to Jesus Saves billboards, by the way, and billboards for barbecue, because yes. Um, Whereas the city I used to live in Massachusetts, they couldn't advertise the sex shop, which was next to the gun shop, which was next to City Hall. And they tried to shut it down. They just kept trying to shut it down. And I'm like, and then you know, the stupid Northerners, which I was one once. Um, oh, those Southerners, they're all, prudish. I'm like, what? Are you sure? You guys are the ones trying to shut down the sex shop. Did you notice? You guys are the ones who won't let strip clubs advertise. Did you notice? Why is that? Public versus private Protestantism. Bang. Explains a bunch of stuff right away. Prohibition. Explained. It's like, what? All explained. All explained. It's great. Things are not equal in this country. And that worked because we're in a big country. The size of the country and the fact that we have every resource anybody could ever need to build a civilization makes a big difference, because none of the European countries have that. I feel like I said this earlier today on my Discord. Oh, that's because I did. That's why Europe can't understand us, and we can't understand Europe. And each side thinks they do understand, which is even worse. That's what the frontier of ideas is about to some extent. But you know what? We're running out of space, or at least we're crowding together too much. That might be why the United States is having problems. Europe might be having problems for a different reason, by the way. Dun, dun, dun. That might be really interesting if you thought that the problems in Europe, even in, we'll say, adjoining European countries, or like in the EU as such, were the same problem. Maybe the manifestations are the same, but maybe the cause is different. It's certainly true UK to continental Europe, by the way. Maybe. Wouldn't that explain a lot? And wouldn't it suck if people were trying to give you a single description that fit the US, the UK, and all of continental Europe, which also isn't the same, but is a lot closer than the continental European countries are closer to each other than they are to the UK. And neither of them are anywhere near the US. Right? So, what if someone were giving you an overarching story that covered all three of those groups? And then maybe explained China too, because the same problem's ripping through China. Now, I don't disagree that it's the same core problem. I just identify different problems. And they're happening on a much different layer. Right. And Christians will identify them at the Christian layer, will say, or the religious layer will say, and I think it's way worse, which is terrifying. Also, I live in a terrifying world, but too much H.P. Lovecraft as a kid. What if that descriptor or that explanation that encompassed all those things couldn't be correct, but it sounded good? There's some enchantment because that's happening. Right. But that's equality doctrine. You're using an equal description or an equal explanation or an equal prescription or an equal prediction to explain a bunch of things that aren't equal, like different countries. That could even happen in the US. Like, you could start talking about the fake news virus scam and the impacts of it as being the same, we'll say, in the Northeast, in the South, and in the Midwest. I got news for you, buddy. They ain't even close. State of Massachusetts had a medical emergency based on this fake news virus scam COVID garbage for 3 years. They lifted it in March, 3 years after they put it in place. The restaurants in South Carolina were closed for 90 days. And then we were back to almost normal. They didn't fully reopen the restaurants after 90 days. The trauma induced by that ridiculousness is way different. When I go up to New England, it's a whole different place. It's not anywhere near as close to South Carolina as it was before the fake news virus scam. So even just using a description for the US doesn't work very well in most cases. That's good to know. Ixnay. People find out one thing and they think they found out everything. Well, look, let's be fair. People have been told they're smart. You're not. And that they can know things. Maybe you can't. Or maybe the way you know things is not propositional, or the way you know the most important things is not propositional. And that when they know things, that enables them to understand the world. And maybe no single person, irrespective of IQ or possible level of education, could ever do such a stupid thing. It's absurd. And that changes the game, because now we need others to help us. Now we need others as experts. And if we need experts, the fact that expert system is corrupt means quite simply that we need to fix that. We don't need to kill the experts, although maybe some of them should be jailed forever, different problem. But we need to replace them with experts who are good, whatever that may mean. I mean, we can do good in the abstract towards the good, right? The platonic good, right? Or we can do good as in they're good at being experts. These are measurable things in some aspect, both of them, right? The way you measure goodness is in the fruits of the actions that the people take. Oops. And then it's not really a measure. We're actually arguing quality instead of quantity. It's technically not a measure, but also that's how it's done. And maybe we could focus on that instead of trying to measure it in quantity. How many right answers do they have? How many papers did they publish? How many that, right? Oh, how about were their results good? If you did, let's suppose you did that with so-called modern philosophers. You sure as hell wouldn't listen to anything Kant ever wrote, or Nietzsche, or Heidegger. Like, you'd throw them out faster than you can say boo. You'd throw out Karl Marx for sure. What a freaking worthless loser. They were all worthless losers. Some of them were just bad people. Like, why are we listening to people whose lives were catastrophic? Rousseau? Obviously, you do the opposite of everything Rousseau wrote. And that would be better, actually, in all cases. Like, just reverse everything Nietzsche prescribed. You'll be way better off. Same for Heidegger. Way better off. Same for Immanuel Kant. Way better off. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, that's why I'm always stunned when people bring these guys up. I'm like, what? Did you look at their lives? Those are the fruits you want to manifest in the world? That's ostensibly where their philosophy's led, guy. We know where that leads. I don't want to go there. This isn't hard. Why are you making this hard? Karl Marx is a freaking two-time loser who squandered a fortune and then was resentful and angry about his inability to hold on to what he was given, much less grow it, which is very difficult, by the way. If somebody inherits a fortune and grows it, praise them. That's hard to do. Most people just drink it away or party away, right? They want to buy friends. Fair enough. It's not that hard. Like, people make it hard. It's not that hard. I'm going to deconstruct Heidegger. No, I'm going to look at the fruits of his existence and say, bye. Sorry, dude. Not listening to your stuff. Not reading a line. Don't need to. Already know where that leads. Why do I need to engage if I know the end of that story? Explain it to me. Look, this isn't hypothetical. I was in Boston. I talked to philosophers. I'd ask them the question. They couldn't answer it. Right? See, it's easy. Tell me what's good about Foucault's work. And then you hear crickets, giant crickets, and you get the suspicion that maybe if there's no good in Foucault's work, or at least none that anybody can identify, maybe don't read that. Like, I don't know. Like, maybe that seems overly simplistic, but like, maybe that's all you need. It works for me. I don't know what to tell you. Right? We get caught up. We get sold equality doctrine like it's a good thing without thinking it through. Would this be good? There's nothing about equality that would be good. Nothing. It would be terrible. We like the trappings, at least the theoretical ones about not being judged. And we want universalism. We want one answer to rule them all. We want the one ring. Tolkien wasn't wrong. He knew what he was doing. We want that. Even Frodo wanted it at the end. But if you get it, you fall into the lava of Mount Doom, right? As Gollum found out. You get a free finger on your way down, but you want a free finger? You want intimacy crisis? You're severing the finger of the other person to get what you want, and you're dying alone as the thing you find most precious melts. Hmm. Yeah, it doesn't sound good to me. I'm out. And the thing is, too, this is what kills me. It's like if you knew a little symbolism, you get all this. It would all be in your head. Yeah, I wouldn't need to tell you any of this. Propositions would make no difference, and they don't make any difference. That you talking people into and out of things doesn't work very well on average. Sorry. Your one superpower, or the superpower you think you have, A, you're not that good at it. B, it doesn't do what you want anyway. Magic words, pah. Things that work, that seem to be magic words, are not. They're not. Peterson talks about this, right, with dictators. Look into the history of dictators. You're going to find out a lot of interesting patterns right there. There's patterns to what successful dictators do and how they operate. And some of that stuff works, for some pretty serious values of works, even. But also, to be a good dictator, like to be a good anything, it takes a lot of effort. And you're not going to put in that effort. Somebody else might, though. You better be able to spot them. It's our inability to spot snakes, or our willingness to excuse their bad behavior, or our desire to redeem their bad behavior, that gets us into trouble every single freaking time. Why can't you let bad people be bad and say they're bad and move on? It's not your job to redeem badness in the world. If Satan pops up, don't say, "Hey, bro, let me show you the light." Get the hell out of there. Or you won't be able to get out of hell. Like, that's the problem. But you think you will. That's why the flat world is dangerous. In a flat world, you can lift people up. And they'll be just like you. Unfortunately, you suck, by the way, so that won't help them. You just suck in different ways. But now they'll suck the way you suck and the way they sucked before, and everything will get worse. Good job. That's the problem with this flat world stuff. You're not actually making things equal because you can't. And if you did, you wouldn't know where you began and other things ended, or where you ended and other things began. I got that backwards. Dyslexia sucks. Don't be dyslexic. Be born undyslexic. The inability to discern is just, it murders us. I mean, we also get to not be judged, and we get to not judge, which is even just as good. Like, we're not judged. We don't have to judge. A lot less work. Also, determinism. Why are you here? Nihilism. Instantly. No judgment, not judging, nihilism. Same thing. No meaning, no connection. You're all alone, individual. No good. Inability to tell, how am I better? Am I worse? How do I be better than I am now? How do I know if I'm living up to my full potential? You can't tell that on your own, you muppet. Of course not. Doesn't even make any sense that you would be able to tell that on your own. You don't see yourself clearly. The only way I can see my face is in a mirror or in this stupid thing. It's like, oh, there's my face. That's what it looks like. You can't see that normally. Can't look at your whole self in a mirror. Can't see the back of my head in a mirror when I look normally in a mirror. If I can see the back of my head, I can't see the front of my face anymore usually, or at least not clearly, not the whole thing. Like, there's trade-offs everywhere. And you're in the flat world, it's all opposition, and you're gonna die alone. And you're never gonna know. You're never gonna be able to discern anything in the flat world. And that's what feminism gives you, irrespective of what it promises you. It just robs the world of all preciousness, because preciousness is in the divine feminine. And feminism attempts to erase it by making it equal to the divine masculine. Then there's no discernment possible. And you die alone with no help, unable to help anybody else except those you push down first. That's why the tyrant nature comes out either way. You don't get around it. Better an honest tyrant than a dishonest tyrant. Maybe that's the only difference. Maybe that's enough. You know what else is enough? This stream. I'm done. I'm finished. Nobody loves me. That's fine. I'll see you in 3 weeks. I don't know what the topic will be. Feel free to suggest, comment, whatever, like, subscribe, tell your friends, threaten your relatives, whatever it takes. We're going to hit it hard in June here when I come back in the middle of June. And hopefully we'll have more stuff. Hopefully I'll get a bunch of stuff done and we'll get these wisdom communities projects going, having meetings and things like that. And yeah, hopefully that'll be fun. Before I go, Sally Joe. We can all live alone like single guys eating microwave dinners made with bugs for equality. No, Sally, I like your other image better, where men will eat from the cooking pot at the stove. No dishes. May or may not be guilty of that. Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna hit it in mid-June here. We gotta get things on track. A little dismayed by all this rain. Although maybe it'll cool it off. I'll be able to get my last tree down. Stupid saws. And look, I appreciate everybody showing up. Didn't get my usual viewership these last couple of weeks, but that's okay. West Coast refugee. I've been listening while installing a door. That's excellent. That's what everybody should be doing. Something better while I'm yapping away. Don't live in an equal world. Don't fall for feminism, and don't let other people fall for it. Like, explain to them what it is, right? In whatever words you need to communicate to them. Don't. A lot of people say, put it in your own words. Don't put things in your own words. Okay, do that for yourself, to yourself. Write them out. Actually, writing's better. Put things in the words that other people can understand, right? Now, I'm only telling you that because I don't do a good job of this, I suspect. So this is why I'm better with other people. Watch The Frontier of Ideas. It'll explain a lot, right? Don't fall for universal explanations. Don't fall for these things. They're false. And enjoy the next few weeks without me. Have a lovely, lovely time. Be well and be better, because the world needs you to be